all the elements called
I was thinking about how teaching is so improvisational. You know, you go in with a lesson plan or a vague idea of where you are in the syllabus or what the students need to learn today, but you don't know what they're going to do and how fast they're going to learn it. And you're constantly measuring their attention, their progress. You think something's going to be difficult for them and they just whiz through it and you're like, oh, now what are we going to do? Or you were going to do something in 5 minutes and they can't get it at all and it's going to take an hour. And you can't know that no matter how long you've taught, because the students are different every day, they're different every semester. So there's a huge improvisational element to teaching, and I think the best teachers are just like players of musical improvisation. They're listening, they're paying attention, they're assessing the situation. They have resources and maybe a plan, but they could just teach without a plan, you know. You know, as far as teaching improvisation, I have a critique of, you know, of jazz education in particular, and I think it's valuable, but as it's normally developed and been practiced, it has some limitations and some dangers that are pretty well known, you know, of people sounding alike and not by somehow codifying and regulating and making things kind of measurable and systematic and easily handed from the teacher to the student. All this information that used to be hard to get, it also makes it less challenging, less individualized. You know, like you make something easier to learn, you're also making students learn it in the same way. They all learn it roughly the same way. Everybody knows these scales and approach notes and ideas, and some things get left out as a result. There's a lot of emphasis on playing a competent solo on chord changes and very little emphasis, you know, at the basic level on how to play together. That's where the variation in jazz education is huge, is how do people teach people to play together? Is it based on one particular historic style, or is it open-ended? Are you encouraging students to experiment, or are you basically saying this is how it's done and you really should do it this way? You know, learn to walk before you run. One of my colleagues, John McNeil, often points out, he says, well, but babies don't learn to walk and then run. They try to run and they fall down a lot, you know. As soon as they can get up, they do a lot of falling and crazy stuff, you know, and somehow that's good in music education too. The part that I have the biggest problem with is the emphasis that somehow you're not justifying education if you don't treat everything if everything isn't accessible, if you don't have a literally like a numerical means of assessment. People say, oh, you know, well, how can we teach improvisation unless we have assessment? But people teach abstract painting, they teach poetry, and somehow they give people grades based on some combination of effort and progress and output and some kind of standards of artistry or excellence and creativity. But there's room for a lot of individual creativity, and I think, you know, sometimes music education is a little afraid of that